Have you ever taken a photo and seen this graph on your screen and wondered what the hell is this? Have you come back from taking absolute bangers and realized that they're too light or too dark, maybe over the part of the image or the whole of the image? Welcome back to another video, and today we're diving into a topic that's crucial for mastering photography: histograms. So whether you're a beginner photographer or an experienced one, mastering histograms will greatly enhance your ability to capture stunning images. So first things first, what the hell is a histogram? Well, a histogram is a graphical representation of the tones across the whole of the image. It shows the range of brightness from the shadows into the midtones and across to the highlights and whites. Think of it as a sort of visual guide to help evaluate the whole of your image. So let's break down the histogram and understand what all this data means. So on the horizontal axis, starting from the left-hand side, we have the pure blacks. Then it moves into shadows, midtones, highlights, and pure whites on the right-hand side. So on the vertical axis, we have the number of pixels that are associated with each individual tone. So in simple terms, if your image is relatively dark, the histogram will represent that by building up on the left-hand side of the graph. And on the contrary, if your image is very bright, you'll notice that everything will build up on the right-hand side of the graph. So histogram shapes and how should they look? Does it matter or does it not? Can I just do what I want? Does it affect the image? And the answer is yes, it does, but it depends on your personal preference. So let's get into that a bit more. So a rule of thumb is that you should go for a well-exposed image, which means that a mountain should form in your midtones and then leveling out to your blacks and whites. But that's not always true. You can't always achieve that depending on what you're shooting. So for a beginner, I would say you should probably aim for a well-exposed image just to learn how it all works, how to expose your image properly. And then when you find your artistic ability or what you like to shoot, then you could overexpose in different areas or underexposed. So as myself, a landscape photographer, I would say that I would like my image to be pretty well balanced. Maybe the sun and the sky will be a little bit overexposed, creeping into those highlights and whites a little bit, but I definitely want everything in the image to be pretty well exposed so I can regain the details and colors, and I'm not going to be clipping any areas. However, if I'm shooting a portrait and it happens to be outside, if the subject is facing the sky and I'm shooting straight at her, generally I'll want the subject to be exposed. I'm not too worried about if I'm blowing out the sky or I'm blowing out something else, as long as her face or her body or whatever is well exposed enough for me to regain details in those areas. But if you are shooting and you want a general idea, if you're shooting more to the left, which is to the shadows, you just want to make sure you're not clipping in those areas. But with modern day mirrorless cameras, you can regain a lot of details in the shadows very easily. However, if you shoot into the highlights and you blow out your whites, basically the image is lost and you're done for. Also, again, I've seen some blown out images that turn out to be okay, so it just really depends on what camera you're using and how far it can push the limits. So how can we use histograms in real life? Well, for me, it's very easy. I have a Sony a7 III and I can just hit that display button 3 times or 4 times or something, and then the histogram's gonna pop up in the bottom right-hand corner. For me personally, I just use it as an assistant. I'll always expose my photo correctly and right, or as good as I can, through my eye viewfinder and on the screen. And then I'll look at the histogram and say, well, maybe it needs a little bit of adjustment in the darks. I need to make this image a bit brighter, or maybe I need to make it darker and up the aperture or something like that. But it can also be a pain in the bum sometimes. If you're shooting really fast, sometimes I will just hit the preview button and hit the display button again, and that will sort of cycle on and off the peaking values. So if I'm clipping the blacks, my image will start flashing black. Peaking the whites, it'll start flashing white in those certain areas. And there you have it. That's the lowdown on histograms. And remember, histograms are not just for professionals, they're for everyone, whether you're a beginner or professional. It's a great way to enhance your photographic ability. If you did find this useful, please make sure you hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. As you can see, I'm living in a van right now. I love it. But maybe if you keep subscribing, I could afford a house one day. That would be pretty cool. All right, guys, see you next time.